General Hannah stood at the center of the war room, her dark green scales catching the light from the massive holographic display above. The fortress world of Keth Prime stretched below through the reinforced windows, its surface covered in gleaming military bases and weapon factories. She had conquered this world 3 years ago, and now it served as the perfect meeting place for the Dominion's most powerful commanders. The circular table around her held 12 of the most feared generals in the galaxy. Each one had crushed entire civilizations under their claws. Their combined fleets numbered in the thousands. Their weapons could turn planets to glass, and their names struck terror across 100 star systems. Admiral Kyung cleared his throat, the sound echoing off the metal walls. His red scales were darker than most, earned through decades of brutal campaigns in the Outer Rim territories. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of hard experience. "Brothers and sisters," Kyung began, his yellow eyes scanning the assembled commanders. "I have called this meeting to discuss something that troubles me deeply. Something that should trouble all of us." General Hannah tilted her head slightly, her sharp teeth showing in what might have been a smile. "Speak freely, old friend. What enemy could possibly threaten the might of the Dominion?" Kyung activated a small holographic projector. Images appeared in the air between them, showing star charts of the Outer Rim regions. Red markers indicated lost colonies, missing patrol ships, and unexplained disappearances. "For the past 6 months, we have been losing contact with settlements in Sector 7, Kyung said. 17 mining colonies have gone silent. 43 patrol vessels have vanished without sending distress signals. Supply convoys simply disappear between jumps. Commander Wook, a younger general with bright orange scales, leaned forward in his chair. "Pirates," he said with confidence. "The Outer Rim has always been full of scavengers and raiders. We crush them, they scatter, they regroup. It is the natural cycle." "That is what I thought at first," Kyung replied, "but the pattern is wrong. Pirates take what they want and leave evidence. These disappearances are different, clean, complete, as if the colonies were never there at all." General Hannah studied the holographic display with growing interest. She had built her reputation on solving problems that others found impossible. The mystery of Sector 7 represented exactly the kind of challenge she enjoyed. "What do our intelligence networks tell us?" she asked. Kyung's expression grew troubled. "That is where things become strange. The few survivors we have found speak of the pale beasts." A collective hiss rose from the assembled generals. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others made dismissive gestures with their clawed hands. "The old stories," muttered General Bora, her silver scales dulled with age. "My grandmother used to tell those tales to frighten hatchlings into obedience." "Tell us, anyway," Hannah said, though her tone suggested she was merely being polite. "Some of us may not know the ancient folklore." Kyung nodded and began to speak in the formal cadence of a storyteller. "Long ago, when our people first reached the stars, they encountered a species unlike any other. These creatures had pale skin instead of proper scales, soft flesh instead of armored hide, and weak bodies that should have made them easy prey." Paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "But they fought like nothing our ancestors had ever seen. They used crude weapons made of metal and chemical explosives. Their ships looked like they were built from scrap and salvage. Yet, somehow, impossibly, they survived encounters with forces that should have destroyed them easily." General Wook laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. "Fairy tales. Stories made up to explain military failures." "Perhaps," Kyung said, "but the stories are remarkably consistent across different worlds and time periods. The pale beasts never sought to conquer territory or demand tribute. They simply appeared, fought with desperate fury, and then vanished into the depths of space." "What made them so dangerous?" asked Commander Shin, a practical female whose blue scales marked her as coming from the water worlds. "According to the legends, they never surrendered," Kyung replied. "No matter how badly outnumbered, no matter how hopeless their situation, they kept fighting until the very end. They seemed to have no concept of honorable defeat or tactical withdrawal." General Hannah felt her patience wearing thin. She had not become the Dominion's youngest fleet commander by listening to old wives' tales. Real threats required real solutions, not superstitious nonsense. "Assuming these pale beasts actually exist," she said, her voice carrying a sharp edge, "what makes you think they are responsible for our current problems?" Kyung activated another section of the holographic display. This time it showed debris fields and wreckage from the missing colonies. "The few pieces of evidence we have found show weapon signatures that match nothing in our databases. Kinetic projectiles fired at impossible velocities, chemical explosives that burn hotter than plasma, impact patterns that suggest ramming attacks by vessels moving at suicidal speeds. Desperation tactics," General Hannah said dismissively, "the actions of a dying species making one last stand before extinction, or the tactics of a species that has learned to fight against impossible odds." Kyung countered. "The survivors we questioned all described the same thing. Ships that looked like they should fall apart but moved faster than our interceptors. Weapons that appeared primitive but cut through our best armor like it was paper. The room fell silent as the generals absorbed this information. Some looked thoughtful, others skeptical, but all of them understood the implications. If an unknown enemy was operating in Dominion space, it represented a threat that needed to be eliminated quickly. General Hannah stood up, her impressive height commanding attention from everyone present. Her dark green scales seemed to shimmer with inner fire as she made her decision. "I volunteer to investigate Sector 7, she announced. "My fleet is currently at full strength, with 200 of the finest warships in the Dominion Navy. Each vessel carries enough firepower to level a continent. If these pale beasts truly exist, they will learn what happens when they challenge superior technology in training." Admiral Kyung looked troubled. "Hannah, I respect your confidence, but perhaps we should approach this more carefully. Send scouts. First, gather more intelligence before committing major forces." "The time for caution has passed," Hannah replied firmly. "Every day we hesitate, more colonies disappear and more of our people die. I will take my fleet to Sector 7, find these mysterious enemies, and crush them completely. Within a month, this threat will be nothing more than another footnote in the history of Dominion victories." The other generals exchanged glances, some worried, others impressed by her boldness. General Hannah had never failed to achieve her objectives, no matter how difficult they seemed at first. "Very well," Kyung said finally. "High Command will approve your mission. But please, old friend, do not underestimate an enemy simply because their methods seem primitive. The galaxy is full of species that appeared weak until they showed their true nature." General Hannah's teeth showed in a predatory smile. "Let them come," she said confidently. "The Dominion has never met a challenge it could not overcome through superior firepower and tactical superiority. These pale beasts, if they truly exist, will learn that lesson very soon." As the meeting dispersed and the generals returned to their respective commands, none of them noticed the small monitoring device hidden in the wall. Deep in space, far beyond the reach of Dominion sensors, that signal was being received and analyzed by minds that had been waiting patiently for exactly this kind of opportunity. 3 weeks had passed since General Hannah left Keth Prime with her mighty fleet. 200 warships moved through space in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the pride of the Dominion Navy. Each vessel bristled with plasma cannons and energy shields that had never failed in battle. Commander Minho stood beside Hannah on the bridge of the flagship, studying the tactical displays with growing confusion. The young officer had served under the general for 5 years, and he had never seen her look so focused. Her yellow eyes tracked every sensor, reading every energy signature, every piece of data that flowed across the screens. "Report," Hannah commanded, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge equipment. "We have completed our sweep of the outer colonies," Minho replied, checking his data pad. "All 17 mining settlements show the same pattern. No signs of battle, no debris fields, no distress signals. The populations simply vanished." "What about the automated systems?" "Still functioning perfectly. The mining equipment was left running, power generators at full capacity, communication arrays broadcasting on schedule. It is as if everyone just walked away and never came back." General Hannah turned to face her tactical officer, her scales shifting to a darker shade of green. This was the color change that usually meant she was thinking hard about a difficult problem. "That makes no sense," she said. "Mining colonies do not evacuate without reason. These people had families, homes, entire lives built on those worlds. Something forced them to leave everything behind. Perhaps they received advance warning of an attack," suggested Lieutenant Day from the communications station. "Some colonies have emergency evacuation protocols." "Then, where are the ships?" Minho asked. "We found no evidence of large-scale transportation. No fusion trails, no jump signatures. Nothing to indicate how thousands of people could disappear so completely." The bridge fell silent as the crew considered this mystery. Every officer present had years of military experience, but none of them had encountered anything like this before. Entire populations did not simply vanish without leaving traces. "Sir," called Ensign Yuna from the sensor station, "I am detecting movement in grid 7. Multiple contacts approaching from the asteroid belt." General Hannah moved to the sensor console, her clawed feet clicking against the metal deck. The display showed several small objects moving through space at moderate speed. They appeared to be artificial, but their energy signatures were unlike anything in the Dominion database. "How many contacts?" she asked. 12 vessels, moving in formation. Size classification suggests they are light cruisers or heavy fighters. Unknown design, completely unknown, sir. The computer cannot match their configuration to any known species." General Hannah felt a thrill of anticipation run through her body. After 3 weeks of investigating empty colonies and following cold trails, they had finally found something interesting. These ships might hold the answers she sought. "Signal the fleet to assume battle formation," she ordered. "Badoopt. Not power weapons yet. We will attempt communication first." The massive Dominion fleet shifted into its standard attack pattern. with the heavy battleships forming the center and faster cruisers moving to the flanks. It was in formation that had crushed dozens of enemy forces, a display of overwhelming power that usually convinced opponents to surrender immediately. The alien ships continued their approach, apparently unconcerned by the sight of 200 war vessels arrayed against them. Their formation remained tight and disciplined, showing no signs of fear or hesitation. "Open a channel," Hannah commanded. Lieutenant Day worked at his console for several moments before shaking his head. "They are not responding to standard hailing frequencies. I am detecting some kind of transmission, but it is not in any known communication protocol. Let me hear it." The bridge speakers crackled to life, filling the air with strange sounds. It was clearly some form of language, with patterns and rhythms that suggested intelligent communication. But the tones were unlike anything the Dominion had encountered before. Where most species used clicks, hisses, or electronic signals, these sounds seemed almost musical. "Analysis," Hannah asked. "The linguistic computer is having trouble processing the structure," Day replied. "It appears to use tonal variations and complex sound combinations, very different from scale speaker languages." Commander Minho stepped closer to his general, lowering his voice. "Sir, these could be the pale beasts that Admiral Kyung described." The timing and location matched the pattern of disappearances. General Hannah studied the approaching ships more carefully. Now that they were closer, she could see details that the sensors had missed. The vessels looked exactly like the old stories described, assembled from mismatched parts, covered in what appeared to be salvaged armor plating, with weapons that seemed crude and primitive. "They look like scrapyard rejects," she said with contempt. "How could ships like that pose any threat to our colonies?" "Perhaps we should ask them," Minho suggested. "A warning shot might encourage them to communicate properly." "An excellent idea. Target the lead vessel and fire one plasma bolt across their bow. Make it clear, we want to talk." The order traveled through the fleet communication system in seconds. The flagship's main cannon swiveled to track the alien formation, its massive barrel glowing with contained energy. A single bolt of superheated plasma streaked across space, passing just ahead of the lead alien ship. The response was immediate and completely unexpected. All 12 alien vessels suddenly accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible for ships of their apparent design. They scattered in different directions, moving with perfect coordination despite having no visible communication between them. Within seconds, they had surrounded the Dominion formation. "What just happened?" Hannah demanded. "They are moving faster than our sensors predicted," Minho reported, his voice tight with surprise. "Their acceleration rates exceed anything in our database." "How is that possible? Those ships look like they were built in a junkyard." Before anyone could answer, the alien vessels opened fire. Streams of metal projectiles erupted from their weapons, traveling at incredible velocity. The rounds struck Dominion shields with tremendous force, causing energy barriers that had never failed to flicker and spark. "Kinetic weapons," reported the weapons officer in disbelief. "They are firing solid metal at our ships." "Impossible," Hannah snarled. "Kinetic weapons cannot penetrate modern energy shields." But even as she spoke, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. The alien projectiles were punching through shield generators and striking armor plating. Ships that had withstood plasma cannons and fusion missiles were taking damage from what appeared to be primitive bullets. "Return fire," Hannah ordered. "All ships, engage at will." The Dominion fleet erupted in a storm of energy weapons. Plasma bolts and particle beams lanced out toward the alien ships, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the strange vessels seemed to dance between the attacks, moving in ways that defied tactical prediction. More concerning still, their return fire was becoming more accurate. The aliens seemed to be learning from each exchange, adjusting their aim and targeting the weak points in Dominion armor with frightening precision. Sir Minho called out urgently, "We are losing the cruiser's talent and vengeance. Their shields have failed completely." General Hannah watched in shock as 2 of her finest warships disappeared in explosions of light and debris. The alien weapons had found ways to overload their power systems, causing catastrophic failures that no enemy had ever achieved before. "How are they doing this?" she whispered. "I do not know, sir. Their targeting systems seem to identify weaknesses that our own engineers never considered." The battle continued for another 20 minutes before the alien ships suddenly broke off their attack. They retreated toward the asteroid belt, taking 3 captured Dominion vessels with them. The prisoners and equipment they gained would provide valuable intelligence about their new enemy. General Hannah stood on her damaged bridge, staring at the tactical display in stunned silence. Her invincible fleet had been outfought by 12 primitive-looking ships. For the first time in her military career, she had encountered an enemy that made no sense. "Set course for the asteroid belt," she ordered quietly. "We are going to find these pale beasts and get some answers." General Hannah's damaged fleet limped toward Research Station Omega, a small outpost hidden deep within the asteroid field. The station had been established 5 years ago to study the strange mineral formations found in this region of space. Now, it might hold the key to understanding their mysterious enemy. Commander Minho walked beside his general through the station's narrow corridors, his scales still showing the stress patterns from their recent battle. Neither of them spoke about the 3 ships they had lost, or the fact that their mighty fleet had been outmaneuvered by vessels that looked like flying scrap heaps. Dr. Yunji is waiting in Laboratory 7, Minho said quietly. She claims to have important information about our attackers. What kind of information? Hannah asked. She would not say over the communication channel, only that we needed to see her discoveries in person. They found Dr. Yunji hunched over a collection of artifacts spread across several examination tables. The scientist was a small female with pale blue scales and the thick glasses that marked her as someone who spent too much time reading data screens. Her laboratory was filled with the humming sounds of analysis equipment and the sharp smell of chemical testing solutions. General Hannah, Dr. Yunji said without looking up from her work. I am glad you came. What I have discovered will change everything we thought we knew about the Outer Rim territories. Show me, Hannah commanded. Dr. Yunji led them to the first examination table, where pieces of metal and strange devices were arranged in careful rows. The materials looked crude and primitive, but something about them made Hannah feel uneasy. These artifacts were recovered from the abandoned mining colonies, Dr. Yunji explained. At first glance, they appeared to be simple tools and equipment. But detailed analysis reveals something extraordinary. She picked up what looked like a basic cutting tool, its handle wrapped in some kind of fabric. This device can slice through our best armor plating like it was soft clay. The metal contains elements that should not exist in nature, arranged in molecular patterns that our best scientists cannot duplicate. Impossible, Hannah said. If they possess such advanced materials science, why do their ships look so primitive? That is exactly the right question, Dr. Yunji replied with excitement. These beings do not build their technology the way we do. Instead of creating perfect designs and mass-producing them, they seem to adapt whatever materials are available to achieve their goals. She moved to another table covered with pieces of hull plating and weapon components. Look at these armor samples. This piece comes from their ship's outer hull. It is made from 17 different types of metal, welded together in a pattern. That should make it weak and brittle. But somehow, the combination creates protection that is stronger than our best alloys. Commander Minho examined the metal pieces with growing confusion. How is that possible? Our metallurgy is the most advanced in the known galaxy. Because they think differently than we do, Dr. Yunji said. We design our technology to work under ideal conditions, with perfect materials and controlled environments. They design their technology to work under any conditions, with whatever materials they can find. General Hannah felt a chill run through her body. The implications of what she was hearing were disturbing. An enemy that could turn scrap metal into superior weapons was far more dangerous than one that simply possessed better technology. What else have you learned? She asked. Dr. Yunji activated a holographic display that showed star charts of the Outer Rim regions. Red markers indicated the locations where colonies had disappeared, but now there were additional symbols showing movement patterns and timeline data. The disappearances follow a very specific pattern, she explained. The colonies were not attacked. Randomly, they were evacuated in a precise sequence, moving from the outer edge of our territory toward the galactic core. Evacuated, Minho asked. You mean the populations were rescued, not captured? Exactly. We found evidence of careful preparation at each site. Food stores distributed to families, personal belongings packed for transport, critical equipment dismantled and moved. These people were not taken by force. They were saved. General Hannah stared at the star chart, trying to understand what she was seeing. Saved from what? Dr. Yungi's expression became grim. From something that was chasing them. Look at this data. The holographic display changed to show long-range sensor readings from the past 6 months. A pattern of energy signatures was moving through space, behind the evacuation route, following the same path but arriving weeks later. What am I looking at? Hannah asked. The reason why the pale beasts are running, Dr. Yunji replied. Something is hunting them across the galaxy. Something that destroys everything in its path. She enhanced the sensor data, showing more detail about the mysterious energy signatures. These readings indicate massive objects moving through space at incredible speed. They consume everything they encounter, leaving empty space behind them. Consume how? Complete molecular breakdown. Stars, planets, space stations, everything converted into raw energy and absorbed. We have never seen anything like it in our recorded history. Commander Minho looked sick. How many of these things are there? The sensor data suggests thousands, possibly millions. They move in coordinated swarms, covering vast areas of space, and they are heading directly toward Dominion territory. General Hannah felt her world shift around her. Everything she had believed about the situation was wrong. The pale beasts were not invaders or conquerors. They were refugees, fleeing from an enemy so terrible that it threatened all life in the galaxy. How long do we have? She asked quietly. Dr. Yunji consulted her calculations. Based on their current rate of movement, the first wave will reach our outer colonies in approximately 4 months. The main force will arrive 6 months after that. Can we fight them? Not with conventional weapons. These entities adapt to any attack used against them. Only the pale beasts have found ways to combat them effectively, and even they can only run and hide. General Hannah walked to the laboratory window and stared out at the asteroid field where the human ships had disappeared. For her entire military career, she had believed that superior technology and overwhelming force could solve any problem. Now she faced an enemy that made such beliefs meaningless. We need to make contact with the pale beasts, she said finally. If they are the only ones who know how to fight this threat, then we must learn from them. They may not trust us, Min pointed out. We did attack them without provocation. Then we will have to prove that we can be trusted, Hannah replied. Send a message on all frequencies. Tell them we want to talk. Tell them we understand the real enemy is coming. Dr. Yunji looked surprised. You believe we can work with them? General Hannah turned back to face her officers, her yellow eyes hard. With determination, I believe we have no choice. The Dominion has survived for 10,000 years by adapting to new challenges. This will be our greatest test, but we will not face it alone. She paused, thinking about Admiral Kyung's warnings, and the ancient stories of the pale beasts. Perhaps the old tales had been right all along. Perhaps these creatures were not the monsters to be feared, but the ones who fought the real monsters. Prepare the fleet for extended patrol duty, she ordered. We are going to find these humans and convince them to help us. The survival of both our species may depend on it. 2 days after Dr. Yunji's revelations, General Hannah's fleet maintained a careful perimeter around the asteroid field. Every sensor array was focused on detecting the slightest movement. Every communication channel monitored for signs of response. To their repeated messages, Commander Minho approached his general on the bridge, carrying a datapad with the latest reports. Still no response to our communication attempts, he said, but our long-range sensors are detecting movement deep within the asteroid field. What kind of movement? Hannah asked. Multiple small craft, moving in coordinated patterns. They appear to be constructing something, but we cannot get clear readings through all the mineral interference. General Hannah studied the tactical display, noting the way the contacts moved with purpose and precision. Whatever the humans were building, they were working quickly and efficiently. Sir, called Lieutenant Day from the communications station. I am receiving a transmission on frequency 7 Alpha. It is in our language. Hannah felt her scales shift to their alert coloration. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a voice filled the air. It was unlike any sound the Dominion crew had heard before, deeper than their own speech, with strange tonal qualities that seemed almost musical. Dominion Fleet, the voice said, speaking their language with surprising clarity. This is Commander J of the Human Defense Corps. We have received your messages, requesting parley. This is General Hannah, commanding the Dominion 4th Fleet, she replied. We wish to discuss terms for peaceful contact. There was a brief pause before the human voice responded. Our people do not trust easily, General Hannah. You attacked our ships without warning or provocation. Why should we believe your intentions are peaceful now? General Hannah considered her words carefully. These humans had proven they could fight effectively against superior numbers. Honesty might be her best strategy, because we have learned the truth about what you are running from, she said. We know about the devourers approaching our space. We need to work together if either of our species is going to survive. Another pause, longer this time. When the human commander spoke again, his tone had changed slightly. You know about the devourers. Our scientists have analyzed the sensor data. We understand that you have been evacuating populations ahead of their advance. We also understand that conventional weapons are useless against them. Meet me at coordinates 274, Mark 85, Commander J said finally. Bring one ship only, with minimal crew. Any sign of treachery, and this conversation ends permanently. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in silence. General Hannah looked at her tactical display, noting the coordinates the human had specified. They were deep within the asteroid field, in an area where the mineral formations would make escape difficult if this proved to be a trap. I do not like this, Commander Minho said quietly. It could be an ambush. Everything about this situation could be an ambush, Hannah replied, but we need information that only they can provide. Prepare a shuttle with minimum crew. We are going to meet this Commander J. An hour later, General Hannah found herself aboard a small transport vessel, accompanied only by Minho and 2 security guards. The ship moved carefully through the asteroid field, following the coordinates provided by the humans. They found the meeting place easily enough, a large asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into some kind of temporary base. Docking, clamps extended from hidden ports, guiding their shuttle into a pressurized bay. The airlock opened to reveal a sight that made every Dominion present stop and stare. 3 figures stood waiting for them. but they looked nothing like the ancient descriptions of pale beasts. Commander J was tall and lean, with skin that was indeed pale compared to Dominion scales, but not the sickly white color the stories described. His hair was dark and cut short in a practical military style. His clothing was simple but well made, with patches and insignia that suggested long service, but it was his eyes that captured Hannah's attention. They were like a predator's, but they held an intelligence and weariness that spoke of someone who had seen too much suffering. "General Hannah," Commander J said, inclining his head in what might have been a gesture of respect. "Thank you for coming alone, as requested." "Commander J," she replied, studying the two humans flanking him. One was a female with longer hair, and scars on her hands that suggested technical work. The other was an older male whose bearing marked him as a senior military officer. "These are Engineer Song and Colonel Park," Jay said, introducing his companions. "They will help explain our situation." The humans led them through corridors carved from living rock, past workshops where other humans were building equipment with incredible speed and efficiency. Hannah noticed that everything looked functional rather than beautiful, designed for rapid assembly and easy repair. They entered a large chamber where holographic displays showed star charts covering half the galaxy. Red markers indicated Devourer positions, while blue markers showed human evacuation routes and safe zones. "This is what we are fighting," Commander J said, activating the display. "The Devourers appeared in our home sector over 100 years ago. Within 50 years, they had consumed every star system within 200 light." Engineer Song stepped forward, pointing to different sections of the chart. "They are not living creatures, but some kind of self-replicating machines. They convert all matter into more of themselves, growing stronger with each system they destroy." "How many of your people survived?" General Hannah asked. "Less than 10% of our original population," Colonel Park replied grimly. "We have been running ever since, staying ahead of their advance while trying to save as many others as we can." "Others?" Commander Minho asked. "Any species we encounter," Jay explained. "We have evacuated over 40 different civilizations ahead of the Devourer advance. Most do not understand what is happening until it is too late." General Hannah studied the display more carefully, noting the scale of the human evacuation effort. "How do you fight something that adapts to any weapon?" "By never using the same tactic twice," Engineer Song said. "The Devourers learn from every encounter, but they need time to process and adapt. If we constantly change our methods, we can stay one step ahead." "Your ships," Hannah said with sudden understanding. "They look primitive because you build them from whatever materials you can find." "Exactly," Jay confirmed. "We cannot afford to rely on specific resources or manufacturing facilities. Everything we build must be adaptable, repairable, and replaceable, using materials available anywhere." Colonel Park activated another section of the display, showing combat footage from previous encounters with the "Watch carefully. This is what you will be facing." The images showed swarms of dark objects moving through space like living things, consuming everything they touched. Ships that fired on them were quickly overwhelmed as the Devourers adapted to each weapon system. "But watch this," Park continued, showing different footage. "This is how we fight them." Human ships darted between the Devourer swarms, using different weapons in each attack. Kinetic rounds, chemical explosives, electromagnetic pulses, even ramming attacks. Each tactic worked once before the enemy adapted, forcing constant innovation. "We cannot win through superior firepower," Jay explained. "We can only survive through superior adaptability." General Hannah felt her understanding of warfare shift completely. Everything she had learned about military strategy was based on the assumption that better technology would always triumph. But against an enemy that could learn and adapt, such assumptions became weaknesses. "What are you proposing?" she asked. "An alliance," Jay said simply. "Your people have resources and manufacturing capability that we lack. We have experience and tactics that you need. Together, we might be able to do more than just run from the Devourers." "You mean fight back?" "I mean save as many lives as possible," he corrected. "The Devourers will reach Dominion space whether we work together or not. The question is, how many of your people will still be alive when they arrive?" General Hannah looked around the chamber, taking in the determination on every human face. These people had been fighting a hopeless war for over a century, yet they still tried to save others. It was a kind of courage she had never encountered before. "What do you need from us?" she asked. Commander J smiled. And for the first time, General Hannah understood why the ancient stories had called them beasts. It was not because they were savage or primitive. It was because they possessed the kind of relentless determination that only the most dangerous predators showed when protecting their young. "Everything you can give us," he said, "because in 4 months, the real war begins." 4 months later, the edge of Dominion space erupted in chaos. General Hannah stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching long-range sensors track the approach of something that defied all understanding of physics and warfare. The Devourer Scout Force moved through space like a living storm, consuming asteroids and debris as it advanced toward the outer colonies. Each contact point showed the same pattern. Matter simply ceased to exist, converted into energy that fed the growing swarm. Report, Hannah commanded, though her voice remained steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. Commander Minho consulted his tactical displays, his scales showing the stress patterns that had become common among the crew. Advanced scouts confirmed Devourer contact at Outpost 7. The facility was consumed in less than 4 minutes. Survivors, none. The evacuation, ships launched 3 hours before contact, following human protocols. 2,000 civilians safely relocated to the inner colonies. General Hannah nodded grimly. The alliance with Commander J had proven its worth during the preparation months. Human advisors had worked with Dominion engineers to modify their ships and weapons, while Dominion resources had allowed the humans to build larger evacuation fleets than ever before. Status of the defense fleet. All ships report ready for engagement. Admiral Kung's force is holding position at Grid 7, while Colonel Park's human squadrons are moving to intercept from the flanks. The tactical display showed the combined fleet spread across a wide area of space. Dominion battleships formed the core of the defense, their massive hulls bristling with modified weapons designed by human engineers. Smaller human vessels darted between them like schools of fish, each one unique in design and armament. "Sir," called Lieutenant Day from communications. "Commander J is requesting conference call with all ship commanders." "Put him through." The main display activated, showing the scarred face of the human commander. Behind him, Hannah could see the bridge of his vessel, a converted mining ship that somehow bristled with weapon systems. "All units, this is Commander J," he said, his voice calm despite the approaching threat. "Remember your training. No weapon is used more than once. No tactic is repeated. We adapt faster than they can learn, or we all die. Human vessels report ready," came the voice of Engineer Song from another ship. "All construction materials distributed. Fabrication units standing by." "Dominion First Fleet ready," reported Admiral Kyung, his aged voice carrying the weight of command. "All ships have human weapon modifications installed." General Hannah activated her own communication channel. "This is General Hannah. Remember, we are not fighting to win this battle. We are fighting to learn how to survive the war that comes after." The Devourer scouts appeared on long-range sensors 20 minutes later. They moved faster than anything should have been able to travel, dark shapes that seemed to bend light around themselves. As they approached, smaller objects detached from the main mass, spreading out to surround the defending fleet. "Contact in 30 seconds, Minho reported. Devourer units numbering approximately 500. All ships engage at will. Hannah commanded, "Remember the protocols." The battle began with a storm of kinetic projectiles from the human vessels. Solid metal rounds accelerated to incredible velocities slammed into the leading Devourer units, causing explosions of dark energy. But even as they watched, the surviving units began to adapt, their surfaces changing to better absorb kinetic impacts. "Switch to energy weapons," Commander J ordered. All Dominion ships, plasma cannon barrage. The massive Dominion battleships opened fire with their main guns, sending streams of superheated plasma toward the enemy. The Devourers that had adapted to kinetic weapons were caught off guard, several of them destroyed by the energy assault. But, again, adaptation came quickly. The remaining units began to develop energy-absorbing surfaces, growing stronger with each plasma bolt they absorbed. "Chemical explosives," Colonel Park called out. All human squadrons, missile barrage. Hundreds of primitive chemical rockets streaked toward the Devourer formation. The enemy, now adapted to energy weapons, was unprepared for the crude explosive warheads. Dozens of units were destroyed in brilliant flashes of chemical fire. General Hannah watched in amazement as the battle continued. Each time the Devourers adapted to one weapon system, the Alliance fleet switched to another. Electromagnetic pulses followed chemical explosives. Gravity weapons followed electromagnetic attacks. Even sonic disruptors and concentrated light beams were used as the human advisors forced constant innovation. "They are adapting faster than we anticipated," Engineer Song reported. "We need more time between weapon switches. Then we give them something to think about," Commander J replied. "All human vessels. Ramming protocol." General Hannah felt her blood turn cold. "Ramming protocol. Watch and learn," J said grimly. Half the human fleet suddenly accelerated directly toward the Devourer formation. Their ships, built for rapid construction and easy replacement, had been designed with one final capability: to serve as guided missiles when all else failed. The Devourers, adapted to defend against external weapons, were unprepared for ships that intended to collide with them. The human vessels struck their targets at tremendous velocity, their specially modified cores exploding in bursts of exotic radiation that the enemy could not absorb. But even as they watched, rescue ships darted between the explosions, using emergency transporters to beam the human crews to safety at the last second. What had appeared to be suicide attacks were actually carefully planned sacrificial maneuvers designed to extract maximum damage while preserving lives. Incredible. Commander Minho whispered, "They planned for this. They planned for everything," Hannah replied, finally understanding the true nature of human warfare. It was not about superior technology or overwhelming force. It was about preparation, adaptation, and the willingness to sacrifice anything except the lives of their people. The battle continued for 3 hours, with both sides learning and adapting to each new tactic. But gradually, the Alliance fleet began to gain the upper hand. The Devourers could adapt to individual weapon systems, but they could not adapt to the constant change in strategy itself. Enemy forces, retreating, reported Lieutenant Day. Remaining Devourer units are withdrawing to the outer system. No, Commander J said sharply. They are not retreating, they are regrouping. This was just the scout force. As if to confirm his words, long-range sensors began detecting massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. The main Devourer fleet was arriving, and it was thousands of times larger than the force they had just defeated. All ships fall back to defensive positions. General Hannah ordered, "Prepare for Phase 2 of the operation." The Alliance fleet withdrew toward the inner system, leaving behind automated weapon platforms and sensor networks. But they had accomplished their primary objective. They had learned how to fight the Devourers, at least temporarily. "General," Commander J said over the communication channel, "my people have a saying. The first battle teaches you how to survive. The second battle teaches you how to win. And the third battle?" Hannah asked. Jay's scarred face showed something that might have been a smile. "The third battle teaches your enemy to fear you." General Hannah looked at the tactical display, showing the approaching Devourer main force. For the first time since this crisis began, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The pale beasts had roared from the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. "All ships, prepare for the main engagement," she commanded. "Today we stop running. Today we fight back." The combined fleet moved deeper into Dominion space, ready to face the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Behind them, the lessons learned in battle were already being transmitted to other worlds, other fleets, other species who would need to know how to survive what was coming. The war for survival had truly begun. The final battle began at dawn over the Dominion homeworld of Keth Prime. General Hannah stood on the bridge of her flagship, surrounded by the largest fleet in her species' history. 2,000 Dominion warships formed defensive formations around their most precious world, while 500 human vessels darted between them like deadly shadows. The Devourer main force descended from the outer system like a plague of darkness. Millions of units moved in perfect coordination, their combined mass larger than some small moons. They had learned from every previous encounter, adapted to every weapon and tactic used against them. Commander J appeared on the main display, his face grim but determined. "All units, this is final engagement protocol. Everything we have learned, everything we have built, comes down to the next 6 hours." Status report, General Hannah commanded. Commander Minho checked his tactical displays. Enemy force estimated at 12 million individual units. Our combined fleet numbers 2,500 ships. We are outnumbered 5,000 to 1. "Then we make every shot count," Hannah replied. "Signal the fleet. Begin Operation Roaring Beast." The plan they had developed over the past 4 months was unlike anything attempted in galactic history. Instead of trying to match the Devourer's overwhelming numbers, they would use the enemy's adaptation ability against itself. Phase 1 began with coordinated attacks from every weapon system simultaneously. Plasma cannons, kinetic rounds, chemical explosives, electromagnetic pulses, gravity weapons, and exotic radiation all struck the Devourer formation at once. The enemy began adapting, but with so many different attack types, their adaptation was spread too thin to be effective. Phase 2, Commander J announced. "All human construction ships, begin fabrication." Behind the battle lines, human manufacturing vessels began building new weapons in real time. Their modular construction systems could create entirely new weapon types within minutes, using principles that the Devourers had never encountered before. Engineer Song's voice crackled over the communication channel. "First batch ready. Sonic disruption missiles with crystalline warheads." The new weapons struck the Devourer formation just as they finished adapting to the previous assault. The crystalline warheads shattered into millions of pieces, each one vibrating at frequencies that disrupted the enemy's molecular structure. "Adaptation detected," reported Admiral Kuhn. "Enemy units developing sonic resistance." Phase 3, General Hannah called out. "All Dominion ships, prepare for sacrifice." Protocol. This was the most dangerous part of the plan. Following human tactics, the Dominion fleet would make apparent suicide runs against the enemy, using their ships as weapons while evacuating crews at the last moment. But the humans had taught them something more important than tactics. They had taught them how to think like survivors instead of conquerors. "Remember," Hannah broadcast to her fleet, "we are not here to achieve glorious victory. We are here to buy time for our people to live. The Dominion battleships charged into the heart of the Devourer swarm, their crews beaming to safety just before impact. The massive explosions cleared huge gaps in the enemy formation, but more units quickly moved to fill the spaces. It is working, Colonel Park reported. Enemy adaptation rate is slowing down. They cannot process this many variables simultaneously. But even as they watched, the Devourers began to change their strategy. Instead of adapting to individual weapons, they started targeting the source of the attacks. Manufacturing ships became priority targets, then command vessels, then anything that appeared to coordinate the defense. They are learning our tactics, Commander Minho warned. The adaptation is becoming strategic instead of just technological. Commander Jay's voice cut through the chaos of battle. Then we show them what humans do when tactics fail. All ships, final protocol, everything we have, everything we are. What followed was unlike any battle in recorded history. Human ships began ramming Devourer units while simultaneously building new vessels from the wreckage. Dominion crews fought hand-to-hand combat in the corridors of boarding vessels that materialized around them. Engineers built weapons from battlefield debris while soldiers held defensive positions with tools and improvised armor. General Hannah watched her tactical display as the orderly battle dissolved into controlled chaos. This was what Commander Jay had tried to explain to her months ago. Humans did not fight to achieve military objectives. They fought to survive, and survival required doing whatever worked, regardless of how impossible it seemed. Sir Lieutenant, they called out. Commander Jay's ship is making a run at the Devourer command cluster. He is requesting all remaining units to support his approach. Hannah looked at the display and felt her heart stop. The human commander was piloting his converted mining vessel directly toward the center of the enemy formation, where the largest Devourer units were coordinating the attack. He cannot possibly survive that, she said. He does not intend to, Colonel Park replied grimly. His ship is carrying a virus that Engineer Song developed. It will cause the Devourers to attack each other instead of us, but the transmission range is too short. He has to get within the formation to deploy it. I know. General Hannah watched as Commander Jay's ship fought its way through the Devourer swarm. Supported by every remaining human vessel, they formed a spearhead of desperate courage, punching through enemy defenses that should have been impenetrable. The mining ship reached the command cluster and transmitted its virus payload. Immediately, the Devourer formation began to change. Units that had worked in perfect coordination suddenly turned on each other, their adaptation protocols confused by conflicting signals. Commander Jay's ship exploded in a ball of light, taking dozens of enemy units with it, but his sacrifice had given them the opening they needed. All ships, concentrate fire on the command cluster, General Hannah ordered. Everything we have. The combined fleet poured every remaining weapon into the center of the Devourer formation. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, chemical explosives, and exotic radiation converged on the confused enemy units. With their coordination disrupted, the Devourers could not adapt fast enough to defend themselves. The battle lasted 6 more hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The virus continued to spread through the Devourer network, causing more and more units to turn against each other. By the time the fighting ended, less than 10% of the original enemy force remained, and those units were fleeing toward deep space. General Hannah stood on her damaged bridge, looking out at the debris field that had once been the greatest threat to galactic civilization. The cost had been enormous. Over half the combined fleet was destroyed or damaged, and thousands of brave souls had given their lives, but they had won. General, Commander Minho said quietly. We are receiving communications from across the galaxy. News of the victory is spreading. Other species are requesting information about human tactics, and Commander Jake's crew was recovered by rescue ships. He is badly injured, but alive. General Hannah felt relief wash through her body. The human commander had become more than an ally during their months of cooperation. He had become a teacher, showing her species how to fight for something greater than conquest. 3 months later, General Hannah stood before the Galactic Council, addressing representatives from 200 different species. The chamber was filled with creatures of every description, all united by their shared survival of the Devourer threat. The beings we once called pale beasts have proven themselves to be the greatest allies our galaxy has ever known, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast assembly. They fought not for glory or territory, but for the simple right of all life to continue existing. She gestured to the viewing ports where human ships could be seen docked, alongside vessels from dozens of different civilizations. They have taught us that true strength comes not from superior technology or overwhelming force, but from the willingness to adapt, to sacrifice, and to never surrender hope. The Devourers will return, she continued. They always do. But when they come, they will find a galaxy that has learned to fight like humans. They will find species that build their ships from scrap and their weapons from dreams. They will find beings who refuse to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. General Hannah paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. The pale beasts have roared from the stars, and their roar has awakened something in all of us. We are no longer separate species, competing for resources. We are one galaxy, united in our determination to survive and protect those who cannot protect themselves. As the council session ended and the representatives returned to their ships, General Hannah remained at the viewing port, watching the mixed fleet prepare for departure. Somewhere out in the darkness, the remaining Devourers were regrouping, adapting to their defeat, preparing for another attempt at galactic conquest. But they would find a very different galaxy waiting for them. They would find humans and Dominion forces working together. They would find species that had learned to fight with desperation and hope instead of pride and superiority. Most importantly, they would find a galaxy that had learned the most important lesson the humans had to teach: that survival is not about being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. Survival is about never giving up, no matter how impossible the odds appear to be. The pale beasts had roared, and the galaxy had roared back.